The game I'm going to show you now was played in Norway Chess, the second round between Grandmasters Aryan Tari and Nodirbek Abdusattorov. And definitely this is a big contender for maybe not the best game, but definitely one of the most insane, crazy, coffeehouse style type of chess games you will ever see. I really enjoyed it. I would like to share my thoughts on the game with you. But before I would like to do that, I would like to express my gratitude to all of those almost 500 subscribers to the channel. Your support is so valuable. And those who haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to do so in order to see more exciting chess games like the one I'm going to show you now. Tari opens the game with 1 e4, and after c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, we have the Rossolimo Sicilian variation. So black goes d6, castling kingside, bishop d7, rook e1. Very standard type of play. Sometimes you're preparing the move e5, but very often the bishop is about to drop back to f1. So after knight f6, here, small surprise as Tari plays here the move h3. Not a bad move, but more common is to play the move c3 first. Later on the move h3 could be considered. And one of the ideas for white is to try to occupy the center with its pawns. The move c3 is very useful to support the advance of the d pawn. Was not played, and we will not see it anyway. The move h3 was played by Tari, and now black goes a6, questioning the bishop, and as announced, the bishop dropped back to f1. And here, a lot of possibilities for black. The main question, of course, is how are you going to complete your development regarding that bishop on f8? Are you going to fianchetto the bishop with g6? Are you going to play for a more central approach with the move e7, e5? Both are quite reasonable options, but look at the move Abdusattorov goes for, rook g8. What is that? He basically gives up the right to castle, and there's a clear idea of trying to push the pawn to g5, trying to exploit that pawn on h3, which can serve as a hook, opening up the g-file. This is the start of a very exciting game. White played the move d3, but maybe it would have been better to push the pawn one square further. Now the rook has moved, black's king will stay in the center, and therefore opening the center seems to be a more logical move in my opinion. But Tari played here the move d3, and anyway, the bishop now covers the g5 square. So before playing the move g5, black plays the move h6, preparing the advance of the g-pawn. And now, very interesting moment, because there is something going to happen. g5 will be played, followed by g4, the g-file will be opened, and the action is going to take place on the side where white's king is. And Tari doesn't fancy these kind of prospects and decides to do a crazy move in order to deflect black from executing that plan, and plays here the move b4. What is this? This is a bizarre pawn sacrifice for those who are looking at the Sicilian for the first time. You think, what is this? Why he's giving up that pawn there? Well, it's in fact a very typical idea in a lot of Sicilians in order to gain control over the center. If you do take with the knight on b4, the idea is to play d4. And after c takes d4, rather than recapturing, you are going to open the position even further. And if black is going to accept all the material, then you see that white has a huge lead in development, and white's pieces are coming alive. Bishop can come to the long diagonal. We can try to open up the center with a move like e4, e5. And then you understand that black is going to experience some problems with its king. Queen b3 can be played, rook a1. Fantastic piece play, fantastic compensation for the material. Knight takes b4, it's not the best move. C takes b4 is the other capture and was played in the game. And now the idea is to make a real sacrifice of it by playing the move a3. So that we try to get rid of the pawn, and later on we will have easier development. So if you take on a3, the idea is to go d4 followed by c4, knight c3, and white does get a very nice pawn center, which will try to push back black's minor pieces, especially the knights, of course. Abdusattorov has a different idea in mind. Plays here the move b3. So he tries to prevent that pawn from coming forward. If white's going to take the pawn, then at least that pawn will not appear on c4, and black will probably consider playing g5 anyway. But the move played by Tari is more precise. Rather than capturing the pawn, he plays the move c4. Excellent move with the idea to recapture with the queen on b3. Black goes g5, queen takes b3. So white is dominating the center, having a space advantage there with its pawns. But black has the g file, as after the move g4, white cannot prevent the file from getting opened. H takes g4, and Abdusattorov recaptures with a knight, with the plan probably to place the bishop on g7 and gain control over the dark squares in the center. But white is first, plays the move d4, and this is a very unusual type of position. It's real coffeehouse type of chess. Black is looking for ways to give the attack more strength, whereas white will try to open up the center and try to crush the black king. And black played here the move queen a5 with a very logical plan of swinging over with the queen to the other side of the board. But it's imprecise, and it could be that Abdusattorov overlooked the move knight c3. The move itself, nothing spectacular, normal developing move, but the point actually is that after queen h5, which almost threatens mate, the knight is still on f3, so black's plan would be now to take on d4, removing the defender from f3, and then the mating threat can be renewed. But the key defensive idea is knight e2, when the pawn on d4 is very well supported and the mating threats are perfectly covered, as the knight will come next either to g3 or even f4, when the queen will have to move again. So something definitely went wrong here for Abdusattorov. Played bishop g7 instead, with the idea to attack the pawn on d4. And now Tari plays in a very principled manner. He doesn't want just to protect, stick to its central pawn, but rather tries to open up the center. And with the move e5, white closes the diagonal for the bishop. D takes e5 played. Black is taking the pawn. And now bishop d2. Very nice move, as the bishop is opposing the queen. If you do take, there is this move knight d5 with a discovered attack on the queen. Queen gotta go back. And now you can take on b7. The center has been opened. It's not that clear yet, but I think white is much better. At least I don't see the mating threats against the white king. And look at white's pieces. They are very close to the black king. Looks very suspicious to me, black's position. So the queen dropped back to d8 immediately, but now the pawn comes to d5, attacking that knight on c6. The knight comes into d4, and now the knights were exchanged. Knight takes d4, e takes d4, threatening the knight on c3, so the knight comes to e4. And here you see white is having a very nice position. The queen is working along the third rank. The attacking ideas against white's king, they have been placed on hold. I don't see what is exactly happening. What you would like to do as black is bring the queen in to the attack. But if you play e6 with the idea to open up the diagonal for the queen, there is knight d6 check, king f8, bishop b4, and this looks incredibly dangerous. With knight takes b7 next to come, looks as if black is going to drop its queen. So therefore the move bishop e5 played. Very nice move. The bishop is better placed on e5 than on g7, opening up the path for the rook. And at the same time looking at ideas like bishop h2. It's not an immediate mating threat, but it's getting a little bit more scary for white. So white plays f4, pushing the bishop back. And now bishop h8. So this is the idea. White has provoked the move f4, which obviously slightly weakens the white king's position. Now the rook is open, doesn't get hindered by the bishop on g7. And things are very tricky now. But objectively, white is in good shape, but has to be very precise. Tari played here the move c5. Ambitious move, but perhaps even rook b1. Activating the rook could make a lot of sense. Just what you should avoid is a move like queen takes b7. It's a very tempting move, but then d3 with the idea to open up the diagonal. Not particularly with the plan of capturing the rook, but you would rather get that bishop on d4 so that you are hitting that white king, which is lacking squares. If the king will have to go to the h-file, then the only thing black needs to do is bring a queen somewhere to h4 or h5, and it can be checkmate. That is going to be a major aspect in the upcoming phase of the game. White played c5 instead, and now if you play d3, white is still in time to meet that move with bishop c3, trying to eliminate that potentially very powerful bishop on h8. But black played a very good move, sidestepping all potential threats with the king. There were threats on the d-file, on the e-file, but it was not completely clear yet. But anyway, it's good to have the king there, getting out of any potential checks. And now we understand what Tari had in mind. He wanted to go rook ac1, intending to play very quickly something like c6 to create a passed pawn, put the bishop under pressure. But Abdusattorov comes up with a brilliant counter-attacking idea. It's the move d3, opening up that diagonal for the bishop as announced. With a plan, if you do take with the bishop, it is bishop d4 check. And the king got to choose where to go. If it goes to f1, it's knight h2 with check. The bishop and knight are taking away a lot of squares, king e2 only move. And then it's bishop g4 with a Boden mate. Remember that video where I covered all these spectacular mates? This is one of them. That means the king got to go into the corner in that case, but now very strong move is f5, deflecting the knight. If the knight goes away, then the follow-up is e5 with a devastating attack. The queen will come into h4. It is absolutely game over, as the king cannot count on the support of any of the other pieces. And look, black's king is totally safe. There are no checks at all. So that's the problem with bishop takes d3. If you do take with the queen, which does cover this square on d4, then there is bishop b5, and white has a lot of difficulties holding on to that square. The queen got to move away, but then anyway, the bishop comes into d4 with similar ideas as very soon with f5, e5. The queen will come in to h4. It's going to be game over. So therefore, after the move d3, you have to prevent bishop d4. Bishop c3 was played. And now, difficult moment as Abdusattorov played here the move e6. Very logical move to get the queen involved, but probably not the most precise, as the machines, and I'm saying the machines because it's perhaps even a move I would not have even considered myself. Here the move f5 is very interesting, trying to deflect the knight. And one of the ideas is that if the knight goes away, let's say to g3, then this pawn is going to be a fantastic deflector, as there is this idea to play d2, attacking these two rooks. You cannot allow that to be happening. So if you take with the bishop, it's bishop d4 again, king h1 and e5. The queen will come in once again to h4. So that means the knight will have to come back to d2 to retain control over that square. But now it's queen c7 with a double attack on these pawns, and then the queen will join the attack. It's absolutely complicated. There's a series of only moves to be found here. Queen b4, protecting both pawns. Black is trying to deflect the queen with a5. Queen c4, hanging on to the pawns. b5, just an insane idea. You cannot take en passant because of the queen. I won't say the queen is hanging, but there is, of course, queen takes b6. When there's nothing you can do, the king is in big trouble. So here, this is just totally insane. I have absolutely no idea what is happening. Maybe the machines are saying black is a bit better, but after something like a d6, there's this counter-attack against the queen on c7. No need to analyze such totally insane variations. Back to the game. e6 was played, and now look at this move. c6, white is going for its own chances, neglecting that idea that the queen can come in. Bishop takes c3 was played first, and now after queen takes c3, it's important to realize that aiming for simplifications by taking on c6, followed by queen b6, can just be met by queen c5. Queens will come off the board. Bishop is still under threat, and in this endgame, it's clear that white has the upper hand with more active pieces and a passed pawn. So that is not to black's interest. Instead, Abdusattorov playing in a principled way. This was his idea. When he played the move e6, he brought out the queen to h4, threatening checkmate. As simple as that. And what should white do here? He can almost not defend. Basically, there is no good way to defend against the mating threat. But there is a fantastic idea, because you would love to take the bishop, but it's not possible at the moment. But if you can cover that square on h2 and play the move g3, attacking the queen, and then attacking the bishop at the same time, that would win a piece. Tari missed the big opportunity here with the move queen b4 check. Where is the king going? If you go king e8, I take the bishop with check. If the king goes to g7, looks safe, but now the queen can drop back to b2 with check again. King got to move one more time, and here the move g3 is there. Attacking the queen. The queen protects the mating threat on h2. Queen got to move, and then the bishop will be taken. It's game over. White is winning a piece. Incredibly difficult to find, but once you know it's an exercise, perhaps a strong player like Tari can find it. But with time pressure, playing with one of the strongest players in the world, it's very difficult to find such a move. Unfortunately for him, he didn't play queen b4. He went for the move queen c5 check. Now, of course, king e8 runs into c takes d7, and, well, there will follow a bunch of checks, and it's leading to checkmate by force. But the king, of course, goes into the other direction. There are almost no checks anymore. And this looks much better. Because if you play here the move queen d4, it's the move e5 with a brilliant counter attack, hitting the queen, and mate is simply inevitable. Bishop takes d3 was played. White captures the pawn, but now the queen comes into h2. King f1 captures the pawn with check. King e2. And now, very important move, e takes d5. Black doesn't mind. The bishop is hanging. If you do take on d7, it's d takes e4. Look at this position. The black king is safe. The d pawn is not dangerous. It's perfectly under control by the rooks on the black rank. And the queen is excellently placed with counterattacks against the bishop. So let's go back to the game. Apparently the best move, and this is also very difficult to spot, it is the move queen d4 check. So that you're more supporting the knight on e4, planning that after knight e5 you can take on d7. And after d takes e4, queen takes e4, queens are coming off the board. Black captures the pawn on d7, but after bishop takes b7, black is only a pawn down, but there's almost no material left on the board, so this is very close to a draw. In the game there followed rook f1. White is attacking the queen, but now the queen comes to e5. That's a very important move, pinning the knight. But now after c takes d7, there's no need to capture the knight straight away. If you do take on e4, we do get this more or less this same sort of endgame, which is holdable for white. But Abdusattorov, an amazing calculator, not in a rush, decides that he needs to eliminate that pawn first. He goes for rook a8, and he's about to take on d7 or take on e4 with a winning endgame. Look what happened. White played queen c3, offering the exchange of queens, but it's d takes e4. Bishop takes e4. Of course, the queen can be taken, but the knight protects the queen on e5. Black queen cannot take on e4 because of the pin, but you can just simply take on d7. Everything is under control. Black is just 2 pawns up. Rook f4 played, attacking the knight. Just don't protect it too easily with something like h5, because now you can eliminate the defender of the queen with check. After h takes g4, it's queen takes e5, and white is winning. Queen takes c3 was played in the game. Once your material up, just aim for simplifications. That's a good technique. Now the knight comes into e5. Still, black is 2 pawns up, and Abdusattorov has no problems converting it. Decided to come back with its knight to guard its king. Rook fg4. So white's pieces are lining up against the knight on g6. Rook e8 pinning that bishop on e4. So no time to take on g6. King f2, rook e6. Very nice solid defense. Bishop d3, preventing the black rook from entering. But once again, we are not in a rush. Black just improved its pawn structure on the queen side, keeping everything protected. King went back to g1. Rook d5, step by step. Black is improving its position. Bishop c4, putting a skewer on these two rooks, but now the rook is entering anyway. On d1, king h2, rook e1, mating threat on h1. So you got to create an escape for your king. Rook f3 played, and now, beautiful move, h5. Rook is in trouble. And nicely calculated, because there's no time to take on f7. If you do so, it's king h6. And look, the rook is just trapped, cannot really go anywhere. The only available square where it will not be taken is g3. But then it's checkmate once again on h1. In the game, one more move was played. It's the move rook to h5. But now, after the move h4, it was time to resign, because rook h1 is coming next. For instance, if you try to run away with the king, it is rook h1, king g4, and now the simplest move is rook to d4, and you're picking up the bishop. White cannot block with its rook on f4. It's game over. And therefore, after the move h4, White had seen enough, had a huge chance to win this game, but in the end, he lost. An absolutely dramatic game, but kudos to Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who just took a lot of risks in the opening, and it paid off in the end. Absolutely brilliant game. Other games in this second round were also very interesting. We will see what's going to happen in the future rounds. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Let's get 500,000, 10,000 subscribers and further. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.